Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Our fishing reel project that we're going to be working on today is a Penn Battle III 6000. It's a large reel. It's good for deep lakes, for inshore ocean, for surf casting, ideally for surf casting, and general saltwater fishing. So we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how to service it, what makes it a little bit different from some of the other Penn reels, and well, give you an idea how to service this reel yourself if you have it, or an idea of what the reel's capabilities are if you're looking to purchase one. So I start by removing this spool and the exterior pieces. The spool has got the HT100 drags in there. It says this reel has a max drag of 25 pounds, and well, it's got a nice setup overall for the reel, and I kind of like it. It's the upper end of the Penn Pursuit Fierce and Battle line. It's got a coffee grinder handle on it, and we'll show you all about the insides of it. It says it's got 41 inches of reel wraps per turn. I believe it's about a 4.7, it's a 5.6 to 1 gear ratio, and we're going to get started. So the first place to start with a reel like this is the exterior pieces. You want to get to the point where you can remove the upper end of the reel. And in order to do that, you need to remove the axle shaft. We'll show you how to do that. Well, if you like these types of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That'll let you know when I'm working on a reel. I work on all kinds of reels. You'll see if that reel is one that you would like to learn more about. Maybe you even have it yourself and would like to service your reel. And that's what this channel is all about. It's teaching you how to service it yourself, or at least understand more about the reels. So again, subscribe, and if you do subscribe, use that notification button so that you know when I'm posting. Well, there's 4 exterior screws here. They're Phillips head screws. I'm taking those out now. And when I take them out, I like to lay them on my bench so that I know that they're all the same size. If they're not the same size, I want to mark the particular holes where they're longer or shorter or have a different thread design or something like that, so that I don't make a mistake when I go to reassemble. Now this reel I know pretty well, so it's not a matter of me not knowing that these are equal screws, but it happens too frequently on reels where the manufacturer will put in a different size screw, and well, you need to be aware of that so that you don't make a mistake. But those 4 are the same. You'll notice that there's a little blue residue on these. Penn does use the Loctite to set their screws initially. I don't use it on the reinstall. And I don't use it on the reinstall because, well, I just don't like the risk of locking one in there and not being able to remove it. You'll see it's got an upgraded gear system in the Battle III. I believe these are those Halcyon or something like that type of a gear. It's a special alloy that they use. That's the difference between the Battle III and the Battle II. Well, we want to roll this all the way down so that we can get access to those screws that are holding on the crossline block. It looks like this reel hasn't been serviced since it was purchased. It has the Penn blue grease inside of it, and the Penn usually overloads their fishing reels with grease the first time around. So if you're servicing it for the first time, you usually expect to see a lot of grease and the like in and around the side case, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. This version of the reel uses sealed bearings, so you really just need to make sure that they're working okay, but generally speaking, you can't service them. They're kind of locked in. All right, I just pulled the axle shaft out after I removed those 2 tie-down screws. Now I'm just cleaning up the crossline block. A lot of what you do on reel service, on your annual service, is you just check to make sure that everything is okay. If you notice that there's something that's broken or worn, you need to replace it. And otherwise, it's just a matter of checking to ensuring that everything's there. This is a beautiful, I believe it's CNC cut if I remember what they say. It's a beautiful gear all around. It's clean. We're just going to place that in there. And then the last part below to remove is the crosswind block. And you can see all of the grease that's been accumulated there. Again, if you overload a reel with fishing grease, it's going to throw it off with centrifugal force. Now it's going to find a place to hide. And in this case, it looks like it all landed on this oscillation gear. So we're going to wipe the oscillation gear down. Check the teeth. Make sure that they're all uniform. If you notice that there's any teeth in here that have some mold grease in it, just go ahead and get a hard bristle brush. Use a toothbrush if you like. Just pull it through the channels so that they get nice and clean. And then set it aside. Well, we have one more thing to do on this reel, and that's to go to the top end and remove those parts. Oops, something just fell out there. That's the other side case bearing. I always get nervous when I hear something hit my bench, whether it's expected or not. In this case, we'll take the tie-down clip off. And if I remember, this may be a 15-inch, 15 millimeter. It's probably 14 millimeter. But just remove that. It comes off in a traditional manner. Be aware that under here there is a little collar. It's a plastic collar that is a kind of a shim for the axle shaft. This one is kind of a big one. When I take the rotors off, I like to put a squirt of penetrating oil onto the two seams where the bale wires meet the rotor, and I like to put a shot on that line roller as well. This has got a backup anti-reverse. It's a fail-safe. When you're reeling the reel, it's fine. When you go to take the pressure off or backpedal, it pulls this plastic arm out. The plastic arm intersects with the ridges inside this rotor. Just remove that. Good place to tell you to take pictures. Notice that there's a spring on the bottom of this one. That spring faces down when you go to reinstall. There's 3 screws that hold on the next plate. And this is a good place to tell you to take pictures. If you haven't taken pictures already, you want to note where these things come in the assembly so that when it's time to reinstall, if you have a question, you can go take a look and back to your pictures and see. For example, here, you're going to notice that this is not symmetrical, that there is a flat side to the collar. That flat side faces that backup or secondary dog system there. This is pretty standard Penn stuff. I think the only difference here we're going to find is that there's a ball bearing in the spool, and that generally it's the material you used in the main gear that's going to separate this from the fierce or the pursuit, and it's the extra ball bearing on the axle shaft. Those 3 screws are the same. I'm going to find a corner in my parts tray for those. And then I'm going to put that little clip in there as well. And we should just be able to pull this out. This reel's new enough, it shouldn't be frozen in there. And a nice solid pop there. Okay, we want to continue with the cleaning then. I'm going to use a paper towel. I just kind of twirl it in there to get the old greases out. You want to pay particular attention to that cavity because greases and the anti-reverse gear don't play well together. They're friction-driven devices. So if you remove the friction by greasing it, you're going to compromise the integrity of the gear or of the clutch. Okay, just cleaning up the rest of that. A little bit of penetrating oil goes a long way in helping to dissolve some of that. But when you're working on a reel, I recommend an annual service of the reel, and when you work on it, you want to clean, inspect, replace worn parts, re-lube, re-oil, and get it back into service. The repair part comes when, well, you notice something that isn't quite right, that needs to be repaired. All right, let's just go ahead and put this side plate bearing in there. Generally, I like to work by sub-assemblies, and I don't like to leave a lot of parts laying around. Notice on this one we have a collar with the first bearing on it. Pull that off. That collar has a recess on the bottom side of it. Make sure that that's on the bottom. Next up is your anti-reverse clutch and collar, a bearing. And sometimes on these you'll find that there's a washer on that pinion gear. In this case there's not. I think on the Fierce there is. And just pay attention to it so that when you go to reinstall, if there is a washer there, you put it in the right place. Well, this channel is clear, but again, we'll just show you from a process standpoint. Take that hard bristle brush and pull through, and then check for the uniformity of the ridges on the teeth. Okay, with that done, you can go ahead and grease the pinion gear. Didn't have any grease on it, did it? So it's time for some service of that. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease, not because it's a Penn reel, but because it's a fishing reel grease, and I can get it in larger containers. You don't service a clutch. It's a friction-driven device, so do not. These are sealed bearings again, so you don't need to do anything there in terms of oiling them or that. Just make sure the recess is down on that, and then you can reinstall. There's ridges that'll seat into the case, and then you want to make sure that you're flush with the case. Remember what we said on the collar here, that the flat side is going to face that override dog. And then go into your parts tray and get the 3 screws that tie that down. Just get them started. Don't tighten them all the way because they do need to align. So the first one's kind of like a pivot, just to make sure you're holding. And before you drive it all the way home, just center the next one. Bring that in. Well, while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, maybe you just want to know a little bit more about the Battle or the Fierce or the Pursuit or the Spinfisher or that whole lineup that Penn has, if you leave that question in the comment section, I will try to answer that question for you. Let's get that third one in now. We can tighten all 3 of them down. Okay, remember the override eccentric now. Spring faces down, and when you put this on, line that up so that the beak, or the mouth if you will, lines up over that stud. Once you do that, we can go ahead and put the rotor back on. If you took that white cap out, make sure it goes in the pinion gear before you put the rotor nut back on. This goes on in a traditional right-hand turn. And I like these a lot because you can't over-tighten them. So he says, and then you watch somebody over-tighten it. Okay, the little collar goes on to hold that from spinning. And we have the screw that holds that on. Okay, we can turn our attention to the bottom of the reel now. We have the bearing in the back case. We've greased the pinion gear. Now we want to grease this beautiful gear. And again, a liberal dose of it. You don't have to get it in every tooth, but a good amount of grease will help. You want to grease the teeth on the front side, which is going to drive that pinion gear and spin the rotor. And you want to grease the back gear here. That's going to drive the oscillation gear, which will make your spool go up and down. Lay that off to the side. Take the same thing. We want to grab our oscillation gear that we cleaned up earlier. Same thing. I use an artist brush for the grease. It does a good job of spreading it, and you generally don't lose the hairs on it. Make sure you seat that properly. Then go ahead and get your tie-down screw for that gear. Get the grease is sticking on it and making it pop in different directions. There you go. Alright, that's on. Generally speaking, I like to move that up to the top in this reel because it's got a little slide channel there. I put that crosswind block on and then pull it down because you're not going to be able to get the axle shaft in with it in the up position. Take your main gear and put that in. Now we can grab that axle shaft that you've cleaned it, light coating of grease, not a lot. Flat side faces you on the way in. And then you can mesh that in with the crosswind block so that you can put your 2 crosswind block screws in. Deal with the bottom one first. If there is a complaint, this does not have an anti-reverse override. And be careful while you're working on these, because if you trap the crosswind block up top, you're in trouble. There's no way to backpedal it out. And sometimes you wind up breaking a gear or something trying to get it out. All right. Get the second screw in. And before you close this up, you can give it a spin. Make sure that everything's turning. It's turning nice and easily. While I have this off, I also want to put a little bit of rod and reel cleaner on there. This is a Penn product. I use a little kitchen scrubby. That'll help remove any of the film that may have gathered on the rotor under the spool. This is your best time to clean that. Let's grab that side plate. You can do the same thing here. Use that scrubby to take off the excess. Let's mount the case then. There are 4 screws. We noted that they're all the same length, same thread, so it doesn't matter which side you put them in. Now let's see, I think I was using the bigger screwdriver for this one. Let's get started and put that back together. So Joe sent me a bunch of these Penn reels. They've all been well cared for. And it's always a pleasure when you're kind of doing an annual service on a reel that's been taken care of. How do you take care of the reel? Well, after every use, you should be washing that off with fresh water. If you don't have a hose or something, it's perfectly acceptable to get a dishpan or any container that the reel can fit in and just flood it with fresh water. Let the reel lay there for about 15 minutes. The fresh water will not harm the interior, and it'll dissolve any micro salts or sands or any of that stuff that may have found its way in. Now, higher level reels like this one, they tend to do a better job of waterproofing them, but it doesn't hurt to take that little extra step there to make sure they're clean. I was just working on a Penn 750 SS, and it had shown its history of having a let's just say an owner that didn't take care of the reels. All kinds of pitting going on and metal flaking and the like, and you can avoid that most of the time just simply by flushing the reel after every use. Okay. Well, that's the bottom chamber of the reel. Now we've got one more piece. That's the bump guard. It's called a bump guard because it's a kind of a fail-safe. If you're fishing with the reel and it hits a deck of a boat, or it hits a gun wall, or it hits a pier railing, or it gets dropped, this will fracture before the case will. So it's probably a good idea to kind of have that as a backup rather than worry it by building a solid framed reel. All right, that's almost in. There we go, that's tight. Put our handle back on. Well, I didn't mop this side up. I did. I didn't mop this side up. Might as well do that too while I'm at it. And we'll just put the handle back on. A little squirt of oil right on this little part where the handle collapses. Will keep some debris out of there. Okay, let's go over to our reel then and just take a look at the drag washers. I think this is the stack that uses the drag washer as the eared washer. And it is. Okay, you want to remove the drag washers because you want to make sure that you clean out any debris or dirt or old greases and the like. You can run these drag washers dry, or you can run them with a little bit of grease. I believe Penn puts them in dry. It looks that way here. So we're just going to reinstall them dry. The HT100 is Penn's version of a Carbon-Tex washer. You'll notice that there's 6 points on there. They go into the cavities in the spool. And usually you would have an eared washer, the 2 keyed washers on the outside and an eared washer on the inside. In this case, the drag washers are acting as the eared washers, so your metals are all the same washers. You don't have to worry about the sequence. With those reinstalled, take that spring clip, find the slot in the spool, and just collapse that down to reset it. It's a retention clip. And generally you can work that in with your fingers. Just make sure it's seated in that slot. And now we can take the spool, load that in, take our adjuster button, put that on, and we'll see how we did. One thing I didn't get was the adjuster button, so again, this little scrubby pad holds the rod and wheel cleaner pretty good. Tighten it up, make sure that it's holding, and then release the tension on it. Okay, give it a ride. That's a beautiful reel. What more can I say? Make sure that the bail is working. It does. And that's it. That's your Penn Battle III 6000 and how to take it apart, service it, keeping fishing for a long time to come. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it. And again, if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe and out of harm's way. To everyone, enjoy the art of fishing reel repair and service. Make sure that you keep your reels maintained and they'll keep you fishing on the water, not in your shop fixing them. Best wishes for great fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.